In my last video, we looked at 3 setup tips to getting the HX Stomp to replace amps for an integrated hybrid pedal board. In this video, I share one way to identify and correct phase issues when summing to mono coming up. Hello and welcome to the video. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Justin and I'm all about worship guitar, helping you sound and play your best for Jesus. If you want to support these videos and my ministry, please consider liking, subscribing, hitting that bell notification button, and heading over to my Buy Me a Coffee page after this to download my patches and more. Have you met before? Welcome back. Big disclaimer before we go any further, the tones in this video are purposely run mono-summed when they're supposed to be in stereo. Mono-summed live may sound very different, and as such, you may not need a process in this video after all, and my patches don't normally sound like this, they're usually in glorious stereo. With that out of the way, let's get to the video. If you're on Helix and HX Stomp, you know that one of its best features is unfettered creativity in setting up signal path. The ability to blend 2 amp setups has been a feature since the Part X3 days, but it's only if Helix can we truly blend them with a split wide path, padding them fully left and fully right for a huge stereo sound. But there are times we don't have the luxury of going stereo, and going mono into a sound system is a necessary evil. Although Line 6 devices automatically sum to mono when there's only one output connected, you could run into the nasty situation of phase issues. And rather than explaining it badly, let me borrow some clips from Goodwood Audio and the Captain, who do explain it and demo it better than me.
Now the 180 switch actually works as well because it's a phasing situation. Sometimes you'll have 2 amps that don't want to work together and it sounds really thin. Well, when it sounds thin, you switch that 180 switch and it sounds thick. So
you know why that is? You probably do know why that is, don't you? But that's because phasing is when you've got speakers like this, and essentially what they should be doing is both doing this at the same time.
Right.
But actually what happens is, if they're wired...
Let's show you some out of phase examples just so you can hear what I'm talking about.
I've linked the full videos in the description box for your further viewing. So what can you do with a Helix or HX Stomp to detect or correct phase issues with dual amp setups? Here, I'd like to credit SkyS23 for making an amazing suggestion, and it involves our dear old friend, the simple delay. But first, it's best practice to copy and paste your completed patch to a blank spot on your device. You don't want to save over your hard work. Also, it's best to hear these tweaks in the context of live sound, so I recommend amplifying your device with a pair of monitor speakers or FR speakers. Step 1. Make space for 2 blocks in a signal chain, one for the end and one after an amp. Once you've set up your stereo amps, you're going to add 2 blocks that will serve to test mono summing. The first is a mono gain block, which is placed at the very end of the signal chain. The second is a simple delay block, which is placed after an amp. Doesn't matter which one, just pick one. Step 2. Turn the mono gain block on. This forcefully mono-sums a patch and you'll hear if there are any obvious phase issues. You're listening for a big drop in the body of the tone and pronounced highs. It's not so obvious with clean tone here. which is why it's important to cram and squish that signal by having it overdriven to hear more frequencies. Turn those overdrives on and let's hear out for any phase issues. Step 3. Use the simple delay for final checks and correction. If you don't hear a significant difference in tone when engaging or disengaging the mono block, congratulations, you probably don't have phase issues. You could stop at step 2, but if you have the time, I recommend doing final checks with a simple delay block. The key is setting it to an extremely mild setting, 0.1 milliseconds with 0% feedback and 100% mix. This essentially displaces the amp's signal path. If you have phase cancellation when the simple delay is off, turning it on will prevent that phenomena since one part of the sound signal is displaced. You will hear a big change in the body and depth of tone, away from overpronounced highs with funky mids. All that being said, I don't think out-of-phase tones are all that bad. Peter Green of Fleetwood Mac very famously had his Les Paul neck pickup upside down, resulting in an out-of-phase, honky, mid-rangey sound that was the signature tone for the band. While you won't get a truly authentic Peter Green tone from introducing phase cancellation at the amp side with this simple delay trick, I think it's possible for that one song you want Fleetwood Mac vibes on, or if you want to track a single coil sound but forgot to pack that Strat and you're stuck with a Les Paul. Key is to experiment. You never know until you try. In summary, this process requires two blocks to test and correct for any phase issues in stereo amp setups, a mono block at the end to forcefully sum the amps to mono, and a simple delay on one of the amp signal paths to test for any significant difference in tone, or to creatively use for a full Peter Green out-of-phase sound. Which brings us to today's bonus. The tones you're hearing are from my stereo Droff amps patch that's in my Droff pack, which I specifically tried to emulate the tones from its earlier years. The vintage Droff series are from the blessed era of tones, while this stereo Droff leans more toward the God He Reigns and Cornerstone era. It's linked in the description box below. Question of the day: do you run your Helix or HX Stomp mono in your church's front of house? What other issues do you have when running mono? I'd love to hear your stories, ideas, and thoughts in the comment section below. That's it from me. Thanks for watching this video. If you gotten value out of it, like it and share it with someone whom you know needs help correcting phase issues on this Line 6 device. Until next time, I'm Justin. and I'm all about worship guitar.